The alarm screamed through Observatory Station Delta 9. Junior Officer Krethal dropped his drink as red lights flooded the control room. His clawed hands flew across the holographic display, trying to understand what the sensors were telling him. "Impossible," he whispered. His supervisor, a gray-scaled Kethran named Velmoth, rushed to his station. "What is it?" Velmoth demanded. "Ships, hundreds of them, coming from the dead zone." Velmoth's eyes widened. The dead zone was a region of space that had killed every expedition sent into it for the last 2,000 years. Nothing lived there. Nothing could live there. Run the scan again. Your equipment must be broken. Krethal ran the scan. Then another. Then 5 more. Each time the result was the same. A massive fleet was emerging from the darkness, heading straight for civilized space. "Send a priority alert to the Imperial Palace," Velmoth said, his voice shaking. "And someone wake up the Galactic Council. They need to see this." Within hours, every major government in the galaxy knew about the mysterious fleet. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session on the neutral station of Concordia. Representatives from 43 species filled the circular chamber, all talking at once. Ambassador Thelnox of the Kethran Empire stood at his podium, his ceremonial robes flowing behind him. He was tall, even for a Kethran, with scales that gleamed like polished armor. He raised one clawed hand and the chamber fell silent. "We have analyzed the transmissions from these unknown vessels," he announced. "They are broadcasting in Old Earth Standard English." A wave of shocked murmurs rolled through the council. "Impossible," said Councillor Zixra, an avian diplomat whose feathers ruffled with agitation. "The humans went extinct over 2,000 years ago." "Not extinct," corrected Dr. Ralvin, the council's chief historian. The elderly scholar accessed his datapad with trembling hands. "Lost. There was a colony ship called Prometheus. It disappeared in the year 1600 GST. 50,000 humans aboard. We assumed they died in deep space." "Well, they didn't die," Thelnox said with a sneer. "These primitives somehow survived in the dead zone. And now they come crawling back to civilization, no doubt begging for our help." The unknown fleet stopped at the border of explored space. They made no aggressive moves. They simply waited. And they kept broadcasting the same message over and over. "This is the Terran colonial fleet. We request diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council. We come in peace, but we come prepared." The council debated for 3 days about how to respond. Finally, they decided to send Ambassador Thelnox to make first contact. He would assess these Terrans and determine if they posed any threat to the established order. Thelnox's diplomatic ship approached the Terran fleet with an escort of 12 Kethran warships. He wanted to make an impression. He wanted these lost humans to understand their place in the galaxy's hierarchy. As his ship drew closer, Thelnox studied the Terran vessels through his view screen. They were strange designs, unlike anything in the galactic database, sleek and dark, with smooth hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They made no sound. Their engines produced no visible exhaust. They just hung in space like predators waiting to strike. "Hail them," Thelnox ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the lead Terran vessel. A human woman sat in the command chair, wearing a dark blue uniform with gold insignia on the shoulders. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes were the color of steel. "I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Kerensky of the Terran Colonial Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "Welcome, Ambassador." Thelnox studied her with barely concealed disdain. She looked so weak. Humans always did. Soft skin, blunt teeth, no natural armor or weapons. How had such fragile creatures survived the dead zone? "I am Ambassador Thelnox, representative of the Kethran Empire and the Galactic Council," he said. "We have come to assess your situation and offer you the protection of civilized space. You have been lost for a very long time. You will need guidance to understand how the galaxy functions now." Admiral Kerensky's expression didn't change. "How kind of you to offer." "We decline." Thelnox blinked. "I don't think you understand. The galaxy has rules, systems of governance. The Kethran Empire maintains order across 200 worlds. Unaligned colonies cannot simply appear and claim sovereignty. You must submit to council authority for processing and integration." "Must we?" Kerensky asked. There was something in her tone that made Thelnox uncomfortable, though he couldn't identify what. "The alternative is being declared rogue entities, pirates, criminals. Is that what you want?" "What we want," Kerensky said slowly, is to be left alone. We have 47 colonized worlds. We have our own government, our own laws, and our own military. We are not asking for permission to exist, Ambassador. We are informing you that we do exist. Thelnox felt his scales flush with anger. You dare to speak to me this way? You are lost children who have stumbled back to civilization. You should be grateful we are willing to help you. Admiral Kerensky leaned forward in her chair. Her steel-gray eyes locked onto Thelnox's, and for the first time in his long diplomatic career, the ambassador felt a chill run down his spine. We were lost, she said quietly. That much is true. We spent over 2,000 years in the darkness, cut off from everything we knew. We watched our people die from starvation, from disease, from cosmic radiation. We fought wars against ourselves when resources ran low. We almost went extinct a dozen times over. She stood up, and the camera followed her as she walked closer to the view screen. But we didn't die, Ambassador. We adapted. We evolved. We became something new. And in that darkness, we learned things about survival that your comfortable empire could never teach. So when you offer us your protection, your guidance, your rules, she smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. We remember what we became in the dark. And we think the galaxy should be very concerned about that. Thelnox opened his mouth to respond, but his communications officer interrupted him. Ambassador, the escort ships. Something's wrong with their sensors. Thelnox looked at his tactical display. All 12 of his warships were reporting massive system failures. Their sensors were going haywire, detecting energy signatures that shouldn't exist. What is this? He demanded. What are you doing to our ships? Nothing at all, Admiral Kerensky said. Your sensors are simply trying to classify our technology. They can't. Our vessels don't operate on principles your civilization has discovered yet. That's what 2,000 years of isolation and desperation will create, Ambassador. Innovation or extinction. We chose innovation. The communications officer spoke again, his voice panicked. Sir, Scout Ship 7 reports they've lost all sensor capability. Their last transmission says, they say they detected weapons signatures, but the computer can't identify what type of weapons they are. They're recommending the transmission cut off. Thelnox stared at the view screen. Admiral Kerensky sat back down in her command chair, her expression calm. You should return to your council, she said. Tell them the Terran colonial fleet requests a formal summit. Tell them we wish to establish peaceful relations with all species. But also tell them this, we are not weak. We are not primitive, and we will not submit to anyone's authority but our own. If the galaxy can accept that, we will be good neighbors. If not, she let the sentence hang in the air. Thelnox cut the transmission without another word. His ship and what remained of his escort fleet turned and raced back toward Kethrin space. Behind them, the Terran fleet waited in perfect silence. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Dr. James Chen approached Admiral Kerensky. That could have gone better, he said. Kerensky smiled. No, James, that went exactly as planned. Now they're afraid. Now they'll make mistakes. And when they do, we'll be ready. In the darkness of space, the Terran fleet began to move forward, advancing one system at a time into a galaxy that had forgotten what humanity could become. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Ambassador Thelnox had just finished his report on the Terran encounter, and nobody could agree on what to do next. We should send a military fleet immediately, shouted General Krath, the Kethrin Empire's supreme military commander. These humans are clearly hostile. They refused council authority. That alone is grounds for action. They refused nothing except submission, countered Councillor Zixra. There is a difference between independence and hostility. Perhaps we should try actual diplomacy before pointing weapons at them. Emperor Vascatol appeared on the central hologram display. He was ancient, with scales that had turned from green to a sickly gray over his 600 years of rule. Parts of his body had been replaced with cybernetics, keeping him alive long past his natural lifespan. The Terran fleet will submit to inspection, he declared. We must know what weapons they possess. If they refuse, they will be considered enemies of galactic peace. They have 72 hours to comply. On the Terran flagship Indomitable, Admiral Kerensky stood in the ship's archive chamber with Dr. James Chen. The walls were covered in holographic displays showing the history of the Terran colonies. Images of suffering, survival, and eventual triumph floated in the air around them. The Council wants to inspect our ships, Kerensky said. They want to know our secrets. Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses, a habit he'd kept even though his eyes had been surgically enhanced decades ago. And we can't allow that. If they see what we've built, if they understand how far ahead of them we are technologically, they'll see us as a threat. The Empire will attack. They're going to attack anyway, Kerensky replied. Men like Emperor Vascatal don't tolerate equals. Only subjects. She touched one of the holographic displays and an image appeared. It showed the colony ship Prometheus drifting through a storm of dark matter. The ship was breaking apart, its hull torn by cosmic forces that shouldn't exist. Year 1600, Dr. Chen narrated. The Prometheus entered what we now call the dead zone. They were trying to find a shortcut to their destination. Instead, they found hell. The image changed, showing the interior of the ship. Humans huddled in emergency shelters, their faces gaunt with fear and hunger. Children cried. The elderly died. The ship's systems failed one by one. They had 50,000 people aboard, Chen continued. Within the first year, 10,000 died. Starvation, radiation exposure, system failures. The survivors had a choice, give up and die or change everything about what it meant to be human. Another image appeared. This one showed a laboratory. Human scientists worked frantically, altering their own genetic code, enhancing their bodies to withstand radiation, modifying their brains to think faster, to solve problems that should have been impossible. They became something new, Kerensky said quietly. Not quite the humans who left Earth, but not entirely different either. They kept what mattered, their determination, their creativity, their refusal to accept defeat. The images showed the fleet finding its first habitable world. The colonists named it New Terra Prime, but the planet was barely livable. The atmosphere was thin. The soil was toxic. Radiation from the nearby star would have killed unmodified humans in weeks, but these weren't unmodified humans anymore. They built cities underground at first, massive cave systems with artificial light. They engineered plants that could survive in the toxic soil. They developed technology to harness the deadly radiation and convert it into power. Every challenge became an opportunity. Every near-extinction event made them stronger. 47 worlds, Chen said. Each one barely habitable. Each one requiring new innovations, new adaptations. We didn't have time for politics or philosophy. Every decision was about survival. Kerensky nodded. And somewhere along the way we developed a philosophy anyway. Never again. Never again would we be helpless. Never again would we depend on others for our survival. Never again would we face the darkness unprepared. On New Terra Prime, Captain Marcus de Soto stood in the command center of his ship, the Shadow's Edge. It was a stealth vessel, designed to be invisible to every known sensor in the galaxy, and it had been in Kethrin space for the last 50 years. Upload the final data packet, he ordered his crew. Make sure Admiral Kerensky gets everything. His communications officer worked quickly. Complete star charts of all Kethrin systems, military base locations, fleet deployment schedules, economic data, political intelligence. Uploading now, De Soto smiled. The galaxy thought the Terran fleet had just emerged from the dead zone. They had no idea that humanity had been watching them for decades. Scout ships like the Shadow's Edge had infiltrated every major civilization, gathering information, learning their strengths and weaknesses. When the Terran fleet finally revealed itself, it wasn't a blind return to civilization. It was the culmination of a 50-year intelligence operation. Back on Concordia Station, Counselor Zixra met secretly with a Terran representative. Dr. Chen had arrived under a diplomatic flag, though he suspected few on the council actually wanted to talk. Your people are making a mistake, Zixra said. Her feathers were pressed flat against her body, a sign of stress. The Kethrin Empire has crushed 17 civilizations. They have weapons that can burn entire worlds. If you refuse their demands, they will destroy you. Let me tell you something about my people, Dr. Chen replied. He pulled up a holographic display showing a timeline. In the year 1847, we faced our first extinction event, a plague that killed 60% of our population across 3 worlds. We survived. In 1923, a cosmic storm destroyed our main fleet. We rebuilt. In 2156, a civil war nearly tore us apart. We made peace. We've faced 37 events that should have ended our species. We're still here. He looked directly at Zixra. The Kethrin Empire has never faced a civilization like ours. They've only fought people who wanted something from them. Territory, resources, power. We don't want anything except to be left alone, and we will do whatever is necessary to ensure that. What are you saying? I'm saying that every Terran ship contains technology the Empire has never seen. We developed it out of desperation, out of the absolute need to survive in the most hostile environment imaginable. Our weapons, our shields, our propulsion systems, all of it is generations beyond what the galaxy considers advanced. Zixra's eyes widened. You're not afraid of them? We're terrified, Chen admitted. But fear and preparation are not opposites. We've been preparing for this moment for decades. If the Empire wants war, they'll get one, but not the kind they've fought before. On the Kethran homeworld, Emperor Vascatul reviewed the reports from his intelligence services. His cybernetic eye scanned through data streams faster than organic eyes could follow. They've been spying on us, he said to General Krath. For decades, we found evidence of infiltration on 40 Kethran worlds. Then they are hostile, Krath replied. We should strike now before they can position their fleet. Agreed. The Emperor's mechanical fingers drummed on his throne. Prepare the Third Armada. 10,000 ships. We will demonstrate to these primitive humans what it means to challenge the Kethran Empire. Target their border world, make an example of it. And if they surrender, they won't. The Emperor smiled, showing teeth filed to sharp points. Proud species never do. Not until we've broken them. The humans will learn the same lesson 17 other civilizations learned. Resistance is extinction. The 72-hour deadline expired. The Terran fleet did not submit to inspection. They did not surrender their weapons. Instead, Admiral Kerensky sent one final message to the Galactic Council. We came to you in peace. We asked only for recognition and respect. You responded with threats and ultimatums. Very well. The Kethran Empire has declared us enemies. We accept this declaration. But understand this, you've never fought humans before. You don't know what we're capable of. You don't know what the darkness taught us. She paused, and when she spoke again, there was something in her voice that made every listener feel cold. Come and find out. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species that had lived under Kethran rule for centuries held their breath. Some hoped the humans would humble the Empire. Others prayed the humans would be destroyed quickly, before the conflict could spread. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Kerensky turned to her crew. Evacuate all civilians from New Horizon system. Deploy the defense grid. And wake up Captain Kovac. Tell her the demonstration is approved. A junior officer's hand shook as he sent the orders. Admiral, the Kethran Third Armada is 10,000 ships strong. We only have one destroyer in the New Horizon system. Kerensky smiled. It was the same smile she'd given Ambassador Thel Knox. The smile that said she knew something the galaxy didn't. One destroyer is all we need. The Kethran Third Armada entered the New Horizon system in perfect formation. 10,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. General Krath stood on the bridge of his command dreadnought, the Eternal Glory, and smiled at what his sensors showed him. Nothing. The system was empty. No civilian ships. No defense stations. No orbital platforms. The humans had abandoned their world and run away. Cowards, Krath muttered. Scan the system. Find where they're hiding. His sensor officer worked at her console, then frowned. Sir, I'm detecting one ship. A single vessel. It's just sitting there in orbit around the fourth planet. One ship? Krath leaned forward. What class? Destroyer class according to our database. Designation Defiant. It's not even moving. Just maintaining orbit, Krath laughed. They left one ship behind to face our entire armada. Either they're insane or incredibly stupid, hail them. I want to hear them beg for mercy before we destroy them. The view screen flickered to life, showing a woman with dark hair and bright green eyes. She wore a Terran uniform and sat casually in her command chair, as if she were having tea instead of facing 10,000 warships. I am Captain Isabella Kovac of the Terran destroyer Defiant, she said pleasantly. Welcome to New Horizon. I hope you enjoy your stay. Surrender immediately, Krath demanded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. You cannot possibly believe you can fight our entire fleet. Fight you? Captain Kovac smiled. No, General. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to educate you. There's a difference. Educate me? I've crushed entire civilizations. Yes, I read your file. Very impressive. 17 species conquered. Billions killed. But you've never fought humans before. So today you learn what makes us different. Krath slammed his fist on his armrest. All ships. Target that vessel!
Fire at will!
10,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, kinetic missiles. Everything in the Kethrin arsenal converged on one small destroyer. The amount of firepower was enough to vaporize a moon. The Defiant's shields flared bright blue. The ship shook, but it didn't explode. It didn't even move. Captain Kovac yawned. Is that all? We haven't had a proper shield test in years. Please continue. The data is quite useful. Krath stared at his tactical display. How is that possible? Our weapons should have destroyed that ship 100 times over. Shield integrity at 93%. Kovac's voice came over the comm. Regeneration rate exceeds incoming damage by a factor of 3. Your weapons are powerful, General, but they're designed to fight enemies who use technology similar to yours. We don't. All ships. Focus fire on a single point. Concentrate everything on their forward shield section. The Armada adjusted its formation. Every weapon targeted the same spot on the Defiant's shields. The combined firepower was staggering. Space itself seemed to burn. The shields flickered, dropped to 70%, then 60%. Now we're getting somewhere, Krath said with satisfaction. Then the shields jumped back to 100%. In less than 3 seconds, they had fully regenerated. Impossible. Not impossible, Captain Kovac corrected. Just advanced. You see, General, when you spend 2,000 years in the most hostile region of space, you learn to build things that last. Our shields regenerate using zero-point energy, drawn directly from vacuum fluctuations. As long as space exists, our shields exist. She stood up from her command chair. Now let me show you what else we learned in the darkness. The Defiant launched a swarm of small objects. They spread out across the Kethrin formation faster than any missile. The Kethrin point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but these objects dodged and weaved like living things. What are those? Krath demanded. We call them Hellfire drones, Kovac explained. They're autonomous weapons. Artificial intelligence controlled. They learn from every attack, adapt to every defense. The more you shoot at them, the smarter they become. The first drone reached a Kethrin battlecruiser. It attached itself to the hull and detonated. The explosion tore through the ship's armor like paper. The battlecruiser broke apart, atmosphere venting into space. Then another drone hit. And another. And another. Krath watched in horror as his fleet began to die. All ships. Evasive maneuvers. Target those drones. But the drones were already learning. They predicted where the ships would move. They avoided the defensive fire. Every minute that passed, they became more effective. Recall the fleet, Krath finally screamed. Fall back to defensive formation. Captain Kovac's voice remained calm. Too late for that, General. You wanted to see what humanity could do. You wanted a demonstration. Well, you're getting one. The Defiant began to move. Not fast, not aggressively. It simply glided through the Kethrin formation like a shark among fish. Its weapons fired with perfect accuracy. Every shot destroyed a Kethrin vessel. Every movement put it in the perfect position for the next target. 4 hours later, the battle ended. 347 Kethrin ships were destroyed. During the retreat, 892 more were lost as they collided with each other or got caught by the Hellfire drones. The Defiant hung in space, barely scratched. Ship damage 12%. Crew casualties 0. Captain Kovac broadcast one final message to the fleeing armada. Return to your Emperor. Tell him what happened here. Tell him that was one ship. We have thousands. And if he wants to continue this war, we'll show him what the rest of our fleet can do. The recording of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Every civilization, every species, every government watched in stunned silence as a single Terran destroyer destroyed nearly 1,200 Kethrin warships. On Concordia Station, Councillor Zixra stood before the emergency council session. We must negotiate with Terra immediately. If one destroyer can do this, imagine what their entire fleet is capable of. Negotiate? Ambassador Thelnox was furious. They humiliated the Kethrin Empire. They must be destroyed. With what? Another counselor asked. You just sent your third armada. They barely escaped. How do you propose to destroy an enemy you can't hurt? Emperor Vasktul appeared on the display. His face was expressionless, but his cybernetic eye glowed with barely controlled rage. This changes nothing, he said coldly. So they have advanced technology. We have numbers. We have resources. We have 47 fleets, not just one. I am mobilizing every military asset the Empire possesses. We will not fight their ships. We will destroy their worlds. Every human colony will burn. Extinction is the only acceptable outcome. General Krath, still aboard the damaged Eternal Glory, spoke up. My Emperor, perhaps we should reconsider. These humans are unlike any enemy we've faced. Their technology is irrelevant against overwhelming force, the Emperor interrupted. You failed because you fought on their terms. We will not make that mistake again. Bypass their military. Go straight for their civilian populations. I want every Terran colony world targeted. If they want to play with their advanced toys, let them watch as we burn their people. The Emperor's hologram swept across the council, and any species that attempts to interfere will be considered allies of Terra. You will share their fate. Counselor Zixra felt her blood run cold. The Emperor wasn't just declaring war on humanity. He was threatening the entire galaxy. On New Terra Prime, Admiral Kerensky received the reports. The Kethran Empire was mobilizing everything, not to fight the Terran fleet but to attack civilian worlds. Dr. Chen stood beside her, reading the intelligence data. They're targeting New Terra Prime first. 4 billion people. They have 40 world burner weapons inbound. They plan to crack the planet open. How long until they arrive? 72 hours. Kerensky was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to her communications officer. Send a priority transmission to all Terran military assets. Authorization code Lazarus. The officer's hands hesitated over the controls. Admiral, are you certain? Project Lazarus has never been tested at full scale. The Emperor wants to destroy our worlds, Kerensky said quietly. He thinks we're like the other species he's conquered, soft, dependent on our planets. He doesn't understand that we learned to survive without planets. We learned to survive in space itself. We learned to weaponize the very stars. She looked at Dr. Chen. Evacuate New Terra Prime. Get every civilian onto transport ships. They have 60 hours. And after they're evacuated, Admiral Kerensky walked to the viewport. Outside, the system's star burned bright and steady. Soon it would burn very differently. After that, we activate Project Lazarus. We show the Kethran Empire what happens when you threaten human worlds. We show them why extinct species should stay dead. Dr. Chen swallowed hard. The galaxy is going to panic when they see what we've built. Let them panic, Kerensky replied. Better they fear us than test us. The Emperor wanted fire. We'll give him a star. In the darkness of space, Terran ships began moving into position around New Terra Prime's sun. They carried equipment that would turn the star itself into a weapon. Technology born from desperation, from the absolute need to defend what little humanity had carved out of the darkness. The Kethran fleet was coming to destroy a world. They were about to discover that humans no longer needed worlds to survive. They'd learned to live in stars. The Kethran fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the New Terra Prime system. Admiral Velthus commanded this armada personally. 5,000 ships, all carrying weapons designed to destroy planets. He looked at the blue-green world on his view screen and smiled. The humans evacuated their civilians. His tactical officer reported, "The planet appears abandoned." "Good," Velthus said. "Then no one can say we murdered innocents. We simply destroyed an empty world. Fire the world burners. Turn that planet to ash." 40 massive missiles launched from the fleet. Each one carried enough destructive power to shatter a planet's crust and boil away its atmosphere. They streaked toward New Terra Prime like falling stars. Then the system's sun began to pulse. "Sir, the star, it's showing massive energy fluctuations." Velthus stared at his sensors. The star was glowing brighter. Spots on its surface began to rotate, orienting themselves toward the Kethran fleet. "What in the void is happening?" His answer came as a beam of pure stellar fire erupted from the sun. It was a directed energy pulse, focused and controlled, using the star's own fusion reaction as a weapon. The beam cut through space faster than the Kethran ships could react. 2,000 warships vanished in an instant. Simply vaporized. Not even debris remained. Velthus screamed orders. "All ships!" Evasive maneuvers. "Get us out of..." Another pulse fired. Another 1,000 ships died. Then something emerged from the star itself. Ships. Terran vessels rose from the sun's surface like phoenixes, their hulls glowing with thermal energy. They moved through the star's corona as easily as other ships moved through empty space. "Impossible," Velthus whispered. "Nothing can survive inside a star." Admiral Kerensky's voice came over the comm. "You're right. Nothing you know can survive inside a star. But we spent 2,000 years learning to survive where we shouldn't. We built ships inside stellar forges, powered by the same fusion reactions that keep stars burning. Your world burners were impressive, Admiral. Ours are better. The Terran stellar forge ships opened fire. Their weapons used stellar material as ammunition, plasma heated to millions of degrees, magnetic fields that could crush metal like paper. The remaining Kethran ships didn't stand a chance. In 12 minutes, the Kethran fleet was destroyed. Every ship, every crew, gone. Admiral Velthas's last transmission was a single word: run. But there was nowhere to run. The Terran fleet had arrived. Across the galaxy, 12 Terran fleets appeared simultaneously in Kethran space. But they didn't attack military targets. They went after something else: infrastructure. Captain DeSoto commanded the assault on Kethran Station Omega-7, a massive space station that served as a logistics hub for 15 sectors. His boarding team swept through the station in minutes, meeting little resistance. The Kethran defenders had never trained for combat against humans. They didn't understand how fast humans moved, how viciously they fought when necessary. The station was captured intact. Every database, every file, every secret communication, all of it fell into Terran hands. What Dr. Chen found in those files would change the galaxy forever. "Admiral," he said over the secured channel, his voice shaking. "You need to see this. All of it." The Terran fleets didn't destroy the captured stations. They broadcasted from them. Every holoscreen in civilized space suddenly showed the same thing: evidence. Dr. Chen stood before a captured Kethran database terminal, his face grim. Behind him, holographic displays showed horrors that had been hidden for 600 years. "People of the galaxy," he began, "for centuries you have lived under Kethran rule. You believed they brought order and peace. You were told that their empire protected you from chaos. Today we show you the truth." The first display activated. It showed slave labor camps on 43 conquered worlds. Millions of beings from different species working until they died, mining resources to fuel the empire's expansion. The Kethran Empire runs on slavery. 43 species subjugated and exploited. Your neighbors, your friends, your family taken and never returned. Another display showed strip mining operations. Entire worlds reduced to barren rocks, their atmospheres gone, their ecosystems destroyed. All to feed the Empire's endless hunger for resources. They told you these worlds volunteered for development. They lied. They took everything and left nothing. The third display was worse. It showed biological weapons. Diseases engineered to target specific species, stored in secret facilities ready to be deployed if any world tried to rebel. They kept these weapons as insurance, extinction as a threat, submit or die. Those were always your only choices. But the final revelation was the most damaging. Dr. Chen pulled up Emperor Vascatul's medical records that were supposed to be destroyed centuries ago. "Your emperor has ruled for 600 years. Do you know how? Cybernetic immortality. Technology banned by the Galactic Convention after the last war. Technology he claimed didn't exist. But to develop it, he experimented on his own people. 30,000 Kethrans died in his medical experiments. He murdered his own species to make himself immortal." The evidence was undeniable. Records, video files, testimony from Kethran scientists who had been forced to participate, all of it broadcasted to every corner of the galaxy. The reaction was immediate. 14 species rose in rebellion within hours. Slave camps were stormed. Kethran governors were overthrown. The Empire's infrastructure began to collapse as its subject species remembered that they outnumbered their oppressors 1,000 to 1. On the Kethran homeworld, Emperor Vascatul watched his empire crumble. His cybernetic eye glowed red with rage. "They will pay for this," he snarled. "If I cannot rule the galaxy, then the galaxy will burn." He activated protocols that only he knew existed. Ancient weapons from the last war. Weapons so terrible they had been forbidden and supposedly destroyed. Planet killers. Biological nightmares. AI-controlled death fleets. He sent them not toward Terran worlds, but toward Council species. The avian homeworld. The Aquatic Federation capital. 3 core worlds that had voted to recognize Terra as an independent power. "Let the humans watch as their new friends die," he said. The avian homeworld was hit first. Orbital bombardment turned cities to craters. 1 billion casualties in the first hour. 3 billion more as the planet's atmosphere caught fire. Counselor Zixra barely escaped. Her family didn't. She arrived on Concordia Station, her feathers singed, her eyes filled with tears and rage. "Where are the Terrans?" she demanded. "They promised to protect the weak." "Where are they?" Admiral Kerensky was already moving. The Terran Armada, every ship humanity possessed, made jump toward the core worlds. But they were too late to save the avian homeworld. Too late to save the billions who died. When she saw the burning planet, Kerensky's expression changed. The smile was gone. The calculated calm was gone. In its place was something that made even her own crew afraid. "All ships," she said quietly. "Activate extinction protocol. Authorization Kerensky Alpha 00. Her first officer looked at her in shock. "Admiral, the extinction protocol has never been tested. We don't know what it will do. We know it will stop the Emperor. We know it will end this war. And we know that billions of innocent beings just died because we weren't fast enough to stop him. No more. The Emperor wanted to see our ultimate weapon. He's going to get his wish." Dr. Chen grabbed her arm. "Sarah, the extinction protocol was supposed to be a deterrent, a bluff. If we actually use it—" "We're not using it," Kerensky interrupted. "We're using the threat of it to force total surrender. But if he doesn't surrender, if he kills one more innocent—" She looked at the burning world below. "Then we use it for real. And we live with the consequences." Throughout the galaxy, every military sensor detected the same thing. The Terran Armada was charging weapons that shouldn't exist, energy readings that broke every known physical law. The Terran ships themselves began to glow with power. On Kithrin Prime, Emperor Vasktol received the transmission from Admiral Kerensky. "You have murdered billions," she said. "You have proven yourself to be exactly what we feared. A tyrant who would rather destroy the galaxy than lose control of it. So here is your choice. Surrender immediately and face trial for your crimes, or we activate the extinction protocol. And when we do, your homeworld, your empire, everything you built in 600 years, all of it ends. You have 1 hour," the Emperor laughed. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare use such a weapon. You're too noble, too righteous. You won't kill billions of innocent Kethrins to stop me." Kerensky's eyes were cold as ice. "Try me." The Emperor cut the transmission. He gave orders to launch more ancient weapons, more planet killers, more death. He was calling humanity's bluff. He was about to discover that humans who survived the dead zone didn't bluff. They promised, and they kept their promises. The Terran Armada arrived at Kithrin Prime with 50,000 ships. They surrounded the planet in a perfect sphere, not attacking, not threatening, just waiting. Admiral Kerensky stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and broadcast to the entire Kithrin homeworld. Every holoscreen, every communication device, every display showed her face. "People of Kithrin Prime," she said, "your Emperor has committed crimes against the galaxy. He has murdered billions. He has enslaved entire species. He has violated every law of civilized space. We are here not to punish you, but to offer you justice." On the planet below, billions of Kethrins watched. Many had never known that their Emperor was a tyrant. The propaganda had been perfect. The lies complete. Now, seeing the evidence that Dr. Chen had broadcasted, they understood. "We are establishing a quarantine field around your world." Kerensky continued. "Nothing enters. Nothing leaves. Your Emperor wanted power. Now he has a prison. You have 24 hours to deliver him to us for trial. If you refuse, the quarantine remains forever." The quarantine field activated. A shimmering energy barrier surrounded Kithrin Prime. It was impenetrable. Ships that tried to pass through simply stopped, frozen in space by technology that manipulated time itself within the field. But Admiral Kerensky wasn't done. She had one more announcement to make. "The Galactic Council is dissolved. The old order ends today. In its place, we propose a federation of free worlds. Every species equal representation. No empires, no conquerors. Just cooperation and mutual defense. Any world that wishes to join is welcome. Any world that chooses isolation is respected. But any world that chooses conquest will face humanity, and they will lose." Inside the Kithrin Imperial Palace, Emperor Vasktol raged. His guards had abandoned him. His generals had fled. His own people were debating whether to turn him over to the humans, cowards. He screamed at his empty throne room. "All of you. I built this empire. I brought order to chaos. I deserve immortality. I deserve to rule." But no one was listening anymore. A group of Kithrin civilians broke into the palace. Not soldiers, not rebels, Just ordinary people who had lost family members to the Emperor's experiments. People who had been lied to for 600 years. They found him in his throne room, still ranting about his greatness. They didn't kill him. They simply bound him and carried him out. He screamed the entire way. 20 hours after the ultimatum, the Kethrans delivered their emperor to the Terran fleet. Admiral Kerensky received him aboard the Indomitable. The ancient tyrant, stripped of his power, looked small and pathetic in his restraints. "You've destroyed everything I built," he spat at her. "No," Kerensky replied calmly. "You destroyed it. You built an empire on fear and slavery. That kind of empire always falls. We just helped it fall faster." The trial was held on Concordia Station, not in secret but broadcasted to every world in the galaxy. Representatives from all 43 enslaved species testified. Evidence was presented. The Emperor was allowed to defend himself. He had no defense. The evidence was overwhelming. When asked if he had anything to say before sentencing, Emperor Vascatul stood and addressed the gathered species. "I did what was necessary," he said without remorse. "Order demands strength. The strong rule, the weak serve. This is the law of nature. This is how civilizations survive." Counselor Zixra, who had lost her entire family to his weapons, stood to deliver the verdict. "You speak of strength," she said, her voice steady despite her grief. "But true strength is not domination. True strength is protecting those weaker than yourself. True strength is admitting when you are wrong. You have none of these qualities. You are not strong. You are a murderer, and murderers face justice." The sentence was decided by representatives of the enslaved species, not by humans, not by the Old Council, by those who had suffered under Kethran rule. They chose exile. Emperor Vascatul would be taken to the dead zone and left there, alone, immortal, with no empire to rule. He would live forever with nothing but his thoughts and his crimes. It was a fate worse than death. After the Emperor was taken away, the galaxy turned to Admiral Kerensky with a question. The same question every species wanted answered. "What was the extinction protocol?" asked Counselor Zixra. "What weapon were you going to use?" For a long moment, Kerensky said nothing. Then Dr. Chen stepped forward. "There was no weapon," he admitted. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. "What?" "The extinction protocol was a bluff," Dr. Chen explained. "A psychological operation. We made the Emperor believe we had an ultimate weapon so terrible that we would only use it in the most desperate circumstances. But there was no such weapon. Our real weapon was human nature." "I don't understand," Zixra said. Admiral Kerensky smiled sadly. "The Emperor based his strategy on what he would do in our position. He would use any weapon, no matter how terrible, to achieve victory. So when we told him we had an ultimate weapon, he believed us, because that's what he would have done." "But the energy readings," another counselor protested. "Our sensors detected massive power signatures from your fleet." "Our shields operating at full power," Kerensky replied. "We were prepared to defend ourselves if he attacked. But there was no planet-killing weapon. No extinction device. Just the willingness to make him believe there was." Dr. Chen continued the explanation. "In the darkness, we learned that sometimes the threat of violence is more effective than violence itself. Sometimes making your enemy believe you're willing to do anything is enough to make them surrender. We learned to be prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. That's what 2,000 years of survival taught us." The Federation of Free Worlds was established within a month. Every species that had been enslaved was liberated. Every world that wanted independence received it. The Kethran people, freed from their tyrant's rule, began the long process of making amends. Admiral Kerensky refused all offers of leadership. "We didn't come back to rule," she told the newly formed Federation. "We came back to make sure no one could rule through tyranny ever again. We will defend the weak. We will stand against oppression. But we will not govern you. That's your right, not ours." The Terran colonial fleet established what they called the Guardian Initiative, ships and personnel dedicated to protecting smaller civilizations from stronger ones. Training programs where species could learn human defensive strategies. Technology sharing for peaceful purposes only. But the galaxy had changed in a fundamental way. Every species had seen what humanity could do. Every government had watched a single Terran destroyer defeat an armada. Every military analyst had studied how the humans fought, how they strategized, how they won, and they became afraid. An arms race began. Not to conquer, but to defend. Species that had never built large military fleets suddenly started. Technologies that had been considered too dangerous were now researched in secret. Everyone wanted to ensure they would never be helpless against a human-level threat. 50 years passed. Admiral Kerensky retired from the military and became an ambassador. She traveled the galaxy speaking about peace and cooperation, but she never forgot what she had learned in the darkness. One day, a young avian officer approached her at a diplomatic event. The officer had just graduated from the Terran Guardian Academy, the most prestigious military school in the galaxy. "Admiral," the young officer said nervously, "I read the historical records about the war. They say you smiled when the Emperor declared war on humanity. Why?" Kerensky, now 89 years old, looked at the young officer with kind eyes. "Because for 2,000 years we survived against impossible odds. We faced starvation, radiation, cosmic storms, extinction events. We fought against the universe itself. And then the Emperor declared war, and for the first time in our history, we faced an enemy that could be reasoned with, could be defeated, could be stopped. After fighting the darkness for so long, fighting a regular enemy almost felt easy. Were you not afraid?" "Terrified," Kerensky admitted. "But fear doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you understand what's at stake. We were ready to do whatever was necessary to protect our people. That readiness made all the difference." The officer gestured toward the peaceful spaceport outside. "People say the galaxy will never sleep soundly again because of what humanity showed them." "They're right," Kerensky said. "But that's not a bad thing. For too long the galaxy slept while tyrants ruled. Now everyone is awake. Everyone is watching. Everyone is ready to defend themselves. That's not fear, that's wisdom. And what about humanity? Do you sleep soundly?" Kerensky smiled her famous smile. "No, we stand watch. We always have. Someone has to make sure the darkness stays away. Someone has to be ready when others aren't. That's what we learned in the dead zone. That's what we'll never forget." She looked up at the stars, at the countless worlds humanity had helped liberate. The galaxy learned what we learned. Eternal vigilance is the price of survival. Sleep is for the dead and the conquered. The galaxy is neither. And as long as humanity exists, we'll make sure it stays that way. Somewhere in the dead zone, on a lonely station with no company, Emperor Vasktol sat in his eternal exile. He was immortal, yes, but he had no empire, no subjects, no power, just endless time to think about the species he had underestimated, the humans who survived the darkness, the humans who taught the galaxy to wake up.